When I bought my lakeside cabin 5 years ago, it was supposed to be my peaceful weekend escape, a small slice of heaven away from the noise of the city. The cabin sat right on the edge of Clearwater Lake, surrounded by tall pines and open sky. The water shimmered every morning, and the sound of loons calling across the surface made the world feel calm again. But that calm shattered one summer afternoon when a group of strangers showed up in golf carts, plastered with Clearwater Shore's HOA logos. They stopped right by my dock, wearing matching polo shirts and sunglasses like they owned the place. The woman leading them, a sharp-featured lady with perfectly styled blonde hair, introduced herself as Karen Myers, HOA president. "Good afternoon," she said, looking me up and down. "We're here to discuss the lake usage policy. As of last month, Clearwater Lake is now private property under the Clearwater Shores Homeowners Association." I almost laughed. "Excuse me? The lake's not yours. It's public land. I checked that before buying." Karen gave me a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Actually, that's no longer the case. We've recently acquired management rights and will be regulating all activities, swimming, boating, and fishing for residents only." "Residents? I wasn't even part of their HOA. My property existed long before the association was formed, and my deed clearly included full lake access." But she was dead serious. When I refused to register my cabin under their authority, the HOA began sending notices. Printed letters slipped under my door, citing fake bylaws and threats of fines. They even placed a new private lake members-only sign on the access road, blocking visitors from reaching the water. It got worse when I found my dock dismantled, boards stacked neatly on shore like someone had confiscated it. A note taped on top read, "Unauthorized structure removed by Clearwater Shores. HOA reinstallation requires HOA approval." That night, I sat on the steps of my cabin staring at the empty space where my dock used to be. My anger boiled, but I didn't know where to start. The HOA wasn't just overstepping, they were rewriting the law. Then one morning, a black pickup truck rolled up the gravel road and stopped near the barricade. A tall man stepped out, confident, purposeful, and clearly not someone who cared about HOA rules. He looked around the lake, then at the sign and muttered, "What the hell is this supposed to be?" Something told me my quiet lake was about to become a battlefield. The man in the pickup truck didn't waste any time. He marched straight up to the barricade, ripped off the private lake members-only sign, and tossed it into the dirt like it was trash. I watched from my porch, half shocked, half amused. Then he turned toward me. "You the one who lives here?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, stepping closer. "Who are you?" He extended a hand. "Name's James Porter. I own this lake." I blinked. "You what?" James reached into his truck and pulled out a thick binder of documents, maps, ownership papers, even a stamped county deed. "My grandfather bought Clearwater Lake and the surrounding land back in the 50s, he explained. "Been in our family ever since. We lease out portions for cabins, but the lake itself, always private property under the Porter Family Trust." I almost laughed in disbelief. "Then the HOA? They're trespassing," he cut in, his jaw tight, "and pretending to own what they don't." As if on cue, a golf cart came zipping down the dirt road, Karen and 2 of her board members. When they saw James standing beside the torn-down sign, Karen's face drained of color. "Sir, you can't remove HOA property," she said sharply. "You're damaging association materials." James folded his arms. "Lady, this is my property. You and your little committee have been illegally restricting access to my lake, and unless you remove every sign and barrier today, I'll have county deputies here by sundown." Karen's fake smile returned, though her voice wavered. "That's impossible. We purchased lake rights last year from Clearwater Development Group. It's already in our bylaws." James took a slow step closer. "Then you got scammed." He handed her a paper, the original deed, notarized, dated decades before her HOA even existed. "This proves ownership. You've got 24 hours to undo whatever mess you've made." Karen's confident mask finally cracked. "You can't just—" "Oh, I can," he interrupted. "And if you've cost me any damage or lost use, I'll be billing your HOA directly." With that, he turned, got back into his truck, and drove off toward the western shore. Karen stood frozen, clutching the papers like they were burning her hands. That evening, HOA members went into panic mode. The barricades came down. The notices stopped. But I had a feeling Karen wasn't done yet, because the next morning, I woke up to find a county inspection van parked near my cabin, and 2 men photographing my property. When I asked what they were doing, one replied, "We got a complaint from Clearwater Shores HOA about illegal construction on private land." So much for peace. The HOA wasn't backing off, they were doubling down. The county inspectors spent nearly an hour circling my cabin, snapping photos of my dock, the shed, even my old canoe tied to a tree. I kept trying to explain that everything was legal, but they just shrugged. "We're just following up on a complaint." It didn't take long to figure out who made that complaint, Karen. As soon as they left, I called James and told him what happened. His tone went from calm to razor sharp. "So now they're weaponizing county resources? Perfect, I'll handle this." By noon, James arrived with a folder in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Come on," he said. "We're going to the courthouse." Inside the county records office, James slammed the HOA's supposed lake deed onto the clerk's desk. The clerk, an older man named Harold, frowned as he scanned it. "This isn't a real property deed," he muttered. "It's a transfer agreement from one company to another, but it doesn't include the lake parcel. They bought air." James smirked. "That's what I thought. So, they've been claiming authority they never had." Harold nodded. "And filing false property claims. That's a serious violation." We left the courthouse with copies of every official document proving James's ownership. But James wasn't satisfied with just paperwork. He wanted the HOA to face real consequences. That evening, we showed up at the next HOA board meeting, held in their fancy clubhouse. The moment we walked in, the chatter died. Karen was at the head of the table, her arms crossed. "Well, look who decided to join us," she said coolly. "I hope you're here to apologize." James chuckled. "Actually, I'm here to evict you from my lake." He laid the documents on the table. "This is the original Clearwater Lake deed, recorded in 1954. And this," he tapped the HOA's printout, "is a fake. Your developer never owned the lake to sell, meaning everything you've done, the signs, the dock removal, the fines, is illegal." A murmur spread through the room. One board member leaned forward, whispering, "Karen, is that true?" Karen's jaw tightened. "We acted in good faith," she snapped. "If there's confusion, we can resolve it privately." "Confusion?" James barked a laugh. "You sent inspectors, harassed residents, and vandalized property. That's not confusion, that's fraud." Karen stood abruptly. "You have no authority here." "Funny," James said, turning toward the crowd. "That's exactly what I was about to tell you." The room fell silent. Karen's power, once absolute, was crumbling. But she wasn't done fighting. I could see it in her eyes. She had one last card to play. The night after the HOA meeting, the tension in Clearwater Shores was thick enough to cut with a knife. Karen had left the clubhouse without another word. But the look she gave James said everything. She wasn't giving up quietly. By morning, we found out what she'd done. The HOA had filed an injunction in county court, claiming James's ownership documents were forged and that the association held rightful custodianship over the lake. It was a desperate move, but one that bought her time. James wasn't surprised. "Typical HOA trick," he muttered. "Delay, confuse, and bully until people give up." But James Porter wasn't the kind of man who gave up. He spent the next 2 days gathering every scrap of proof, aerial maps, water use permits, and even photos of his grandfather fishing on the same lake decades earlier. Meanwhile, I helped by contacting the local news. If Karen wanted attention, she was about to get plenty of it. When court day came, the small-town courthouse was packed. HOA board members filled one side, whispering nervously. On the other sat residents, some angry, some ashamed they'd believed Karen's lies. Karen arrived late, dressed in a navy blue suit, her smile polished but her hands trembling slightly. When the judge called the case, James stepped forward with calm authority. "Your Honor, the HOA's claim is baseless. The Porter family has held legal title to Clearwater Lake for 71 years. The association fabricated ownership to control access and profit off residents who didn't know better." He handed over the documents. The judge reviewed them carefully, flipping between Old County records and the supposed transfer agreement the HOA had. After a long silence, he looked up. "This isn't even close," he said. "The lake belongs to the Porter estate. The HOA's claim is invalid and constitutes attempted fraud." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Karen's face turned pale. The judge wasn't finished. "I'm also issuing a cease and desist order against the Clearwater Shores HOA," he continued. "All signs, fees, and restrictions related to Clearwater Lake must be removed immediately. Further violations will result in criminal charges." Karen tried to speak. "Your Honor, if I could just explain—" He raised a hand. "You've done enough explaining." By the end of the day, county workers were out at the lake removing every private property sign. Residents watched quietly as the lies came down one by one. That evening, James stood by the water, the sunset painting gold across the ripples. "My grandfather always said, 'You can't own nature. You can only respect it,'" he said softly. I smiled. "Guess the HOA forgot that part." James chuckled. "They won't forget again." Karen resigned the next week. And Clearwater Lake, my peaceful retreat, finally belonged to the person it always had.